Warning: some may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. By watching this video, you agree to not unsubscribe when you witness what monstrosity Dom has bought now.
This is not a drill. You've had the warning. Have your finger ready over that unsubscribe button if you don't like it. I'm only joking. Double tap it. I couldn't help myself. And now I've been thinking about one of these for a while. Not this specific engine though, which is interesting. Still going to keep making Mark 1 content, so do not go anywhere. However, I really fancy the Mark 2. Yep, bought myself a Mark II. Now, this was not planned, and you'll see why I bought this in a minute. If you know the channel well, there's one thing on this car that will make me buy it. But no, basically this popped up on Facebook. It was a friend of mine, Richard, selling it. Had it, I've known him for probably 5 years. I think he's had it about 3. And I remember saying to him, when you sell it, let us know, because I think this is a really cool car. So this is a Mark II 8J Audi TT with a 3.2 lump, with an S-tronic box. And do you know what? I rather like it. It's got that grunt, it's got that sort of, the charisma that 3.2 engine has bags of torque, a really nice smooth linear drive. But what's interesting is this one feels quicker. The gearbox is slightly better, apart from when you put it into reverse, it thinks about reversing and then sends you on your way. It has got the 19-inch rotors. It has a black baseball leather interior, which I think is absolutely gorgeous. And it has that Mark 1 armrest. Did you see that on the montage? A Mark 1, this is probably the only 3.2 or the only Mark II with a Mark 1 armrest fitted. And I tell you what, it's in the perfect height as well. I mean, that just made the car £250 cheaper, right? It is a roadster. It's got the RS rear spoiler, it's got the RS rear bumper, and that is where my knowledge finishes. It has an Apple CarPlay, which on the way home fell out, and I've re-put it back in again. I believe a TTS front bumper, and maybe the gear knob is a TTS. The clocks are definitely TTS, because it says TTS on them. It has Bose, and that is about my knowledge. Now, I bought this because I wanted something a little bit nicer to drive on the daily. The Mark 1's going to come off the road for a few bits over the winter, so it made sense. And I was actually looking at TTRSs. Of course, I didn't have the money, but I did start to do my research and to start sort of see what was going on, what I could do, and what sort of information I needed to check when buying one. And then this come up. Now, you know me, I don't hide things. £3,200 this was up for. And I thought, do you know what? I'll take a punt, because at the end of the day, this is it's a category write-off. I don't know whether it's an S or an N, I'm not 100% sure. But it's been written off something like 11 years ago. So arguably, it's fine. I can't see where the damage has happened, so it was obviously either superficial or a very good repair. However, this car used to be black. Now, when you delve into it, there is some signs, and the thing is, someone has been there mucking about with it. So they've obviously changed front and rear bumpers, they've changed the spoiler, they've changed some of the interior, they've changed the clock. So people have been there, and there's signs. Certain trims are loose, the fitment gap isn't quite 100%, but for the money I paid, it was worth it in part. So even if the engine give up, or the gearbox give up, or something stopped working, I mean, the roof goes down, which is 50% of the problem. So it's got loads of spec. It's very nice, it just needs tidying up. And I thought, what better way to get into a Mark II than a running driving one with MOT, 92,000 miles on the clock, so arguably not even warmed up. But it's a great little project. It certainly needs some fettling. I've just noticed while standing here that the grille is falling out one side. Not sure how to clip that back in, so that'll be one of the jobs that's hanging out. We'll worry about that another day. But I thought, yeah, great, get myself into a Mark II, see if I like the platform, see if I can make some videos for you guys as well between the Mark 1 and the Mark II, seeing as these become a lot more popular. Now, I believe the kids call it FOMO, which is fear of missing out, and I was thinking, I'll see what all the fuss is about. So it's with that FOMO, or the fear of missing out, that I thought, do you know what? for a while I've been thinking I quite fancy a Mark II, and for a daily, just to plod about in, I thought a Mark II might be a little bit nicer, a little bit easier to drive, a little bit less likely to break down on me. Not that the Mark I has ever been a problem. But I thought for the money, it was definitely worth a punt, and it's great content for you. Interesting for me because I've never worked on one of these before. So that should be interesting. There is some videos out there. Car Christmas has made quite a few, and there is a couple of other YouTubers who have done some Mark II stuff. So that will help me, and as well as when I'm making videos. There's a few things with this car. I'll go into the next video, we'll do a big walkthrough of all the little issues, but one of the main ones is the central locking doesn't work on the fob. It works on the key and the door, but I've never been a fan of that. So that is definitely one thing I will work on. I tell you what, should we go for a little drive quick? Driving a Mark II is very much like driving a Mark I. It's just a little bit nicer. Because obviously the Mark I is older, smaller. As technology progresses, they're going to make it slightly better, slightly more comfortable, slightly more larger, and just a nicer drive. Is it as sporty? Probably not unless you have an RS with MagRide or a TTS, but it is a very nice place to be. And for what they start price-wise, I mean, you can pick a Mark II anything up from sort of 2.5–3 grand upwards. And then you can go from there. I mean, the ceiling is probably 20 to 30 grand for a nice RS, but they offer a lot. And if you wanted a daily, Mark I's are getting old. There's no hiding it. Parts are getting a little bit hard to do. Garages are less likely to want to work on them. And I think that's why quite a lot of people are moving to the Mark II. They've dailied Mark I's. They're great cars, very rarely break down and leave you by the side of the road. However, they're quirky. They need bits. The bits are harder to get. The bits are getting more expensive. Like I said, garages are less likely to work on them, which is then pushing everyone onto a Mark II, if you want to stay with a TT, that is. Now, these do offer quite a variant of platforms from a 1.8 petrol, 2 litre, 2.5, 3.2. They also offer a diesel, which I'll say is a 2 litre TDI. I'm not 100% sure. And you can buy that in both coupe and roadster. Not sure why you'd want a convertible diesel, but there is some out there. I know of one. I definitely just caught the bumper on that speed bump. But they offer quite a bit more. Arguably more comfortable. These seats are absolutely gorgeous, super comfortable, and matched with this Mark I armrest, probably one of the nicest cars I've sat in for a long time. So that brings you to this FOMO that I was discussing, which was the fear of missing out. Now, you can drive a Mark I for as long as you want. If you're going to use it as a daily, eventually, unless you're absolutely hardcore, you're going to want something a bit newer. This comes with Apple CarPlay. It's got auto dimming mirror, it has folding wing mirrors. There's loads of features that this car has automatic headlights. All the things that you would pay extra or have to modify to do on a Mark I. It also has comfort indicators. When you touch it, it only indicates 3 times. And all these little things, if you've driven newer cars, are things you miss with a Mark I. Now, I'm not saying this is the reason to go and buy a Mark II, because Mark I's are cool as, but it is certainly things that people may want. And when they have a bit of money and they want a daily, but they want something a bit more reliable and a bit easier to drive than a Mark I, you can understand why people make this choice. Now this, being a 3.2 with an auto, I thought it was going to drive much like my Mark I, but it doesn't. It's a lot more responsive. Now I reckon this might have had a map, because if you plant it, it literally just takes off at any time. In sport, absolutely lovely. It doesn't hold the gears to 5,000, 6,000 RPM and absolutely screaming. I'm in sport now, 3,000 RPM. If you accelerate a little bit and gently on the pedal, it will knock up a gear about 4. So actually very, very drivable. Whereas if you've got a DSG Mark I, you'll know, horrible to drive in sport. But at any time, very linear, takes off really well, straight to the speed limit, no problem. And it is a very, very nice drive. Some say too easy, because it is very effortless. If you're after a daily or just a nice car to drive, I can't argue with this. Now, one thing I will say is the 3.2 is the most expensive tax category. I found out the hard way. So a TTRS is only about £400 a year for road tax. The 3.2 is £735, which I think is half the reason these are very cheap. But, and I say a big but, they are super reliable. That 3.2 engine is barely stressed, no matter how hard you push it. It absolutely eats the miles up, and they are known for being super reliable, doing 200, 250,000. And these engines are often bought by people and put into cars and made 7, 8, 900 horsepower. So yes, you are paying £300 more for road tax. However, you are getting a very, very reliable car. Is it a put off? 100%. But it didn't matter because I was buying the car regardless. So when I come to tax, I just had a little bit of a shock, 60 something quid a month rather than the 30 something quid a Mark 1 would be, which is always a little bit upsetting because I could have had 2 Mark 1s. But insurance wise, less than £400 for the year, fully comp. Ideal. Absolutely ideal. So the Mark II definitely has some perks. I am going to enjoy driving it daily. The Mark 1 is still going to get plenty of use. I'm going to try and do videos on a sort of Mark 1, Mark 2 basis. Not going to do loads of mods. Next video will be looking through the car, seeing what the problems are, and then the next video after that will be some modifications, and then we'll do some fault repairs and fault finding because there's a few issues. Like I said, central locking doesn't work, and there's a couple of other little niggles that are very, very annoying. But besides that, just making this the best car it can be. Probably modding the crap out of it at some point. You know me, I can't stay away. But let me know, do you like the Mark II? Have you been thinking about buying a Mark II? That would be interesting. If you're local or you'd like to feature your car on the channel, Mark 1, Mark 2, let me know. Or if you'd like to drive the Mark II and you're insured, feel free to come meet up with me, have a drive and see what you think. I'm always interested to see what you guys think as well. But I'd like to thank you for watching, and if you haven't unsubscribed, really appreciate that. And I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.